Everyone, my name is Ellie, and in today's video I'm going to be talking to you about how to write a medicine personal statement. So personally, I found writing the personal statement really difficult because by the time I got around to writing the personal statement, I hadn't actually written an essay since my GCSE English literature exam. So just the thought of writing I guess it is like a mini essay all over again, was quite daunting in itself. And I had all this volunteering and work experience behind me, but I had no idea how to write about it in a concise and meaningful manner because, of course, you are limited with the characters and you want to make sure that you're not rambling too much. So it was really difficult. I wrote my first draft, I think, shortly after my year 12 mocks. I thought, you know what, this draft is really good, this is going to be fine. I handed it in to my head of year and she basically ripped it up because it was so bad. So don't expect to just go on your computer and type away the most perfect personal statement straight away. It just doesn't happen. In the end, it actually took me 14 drafts to write my perfect final draft. So it's a long process. So in today's video, I'm going to give you my advice for how to write a personal statement, the medicine personal statement specifically. And then I also am going to touch on different aspects of the personal statement, like how to write an intro, conclusion, work experience. And then at the end, I'm just going to throw in my miscellaneous tips that I couldn't really fit anywhere else. So I'm going to put the timestamps to the side of me so that you can skip to the parts of the video that you need. And yeah, I really hope that this video helps you. It's probably going to be a long one, so make sure you get a drink, a snack. So my general tips for how to write the medicine personal statement is, first of all, give yourself plenty of time to write it. So I began writing mine after the mock exams of year 12, and I was writing it all the way through summer holidays so that it was ready for when I came back to school in September. Please don't leave it until September and when year 13 starts, because honestly, that first month of year 13 is like a whirlwind because obviously you're starting the A2 content, you have to think about university and lots of different things. So you're not going to have time to write an amazing personal statement. So I really recommend that you do it over the summer holidays. I think it's really important that you do it over a long period of time as well, because ultimately you will not be able to just bang out the most amazing personal statement in a couple of days. You might be able to, but for me it was a gradual process over multiple weeks to try and get the perfect personal statement. So do give yourself plenty of time because you don't want to have to rush it and not do your best work. Of course, before you start writing your personal statement, you need to plan. So what I did was I made a document of all of my roles, responsibilities, achievements, experiences, and I wrote them into like a Word document. And then underneath each one, I wrote about how this specific achievement or this specific experience would make me a good medical student, how it will aid me in my career as a doctor, how does it give me the skills to be a good doctor, so that I was referencing every single achievement and point to the medicine degree. And then once I did that, I ranked them, I prioritized them to show which experiences were the most relevant and valid to my personal statement and my medicine degree. So for example, one of the achievements I had was in year 7, I got to help write and publish a book, but then I realized, even though that was an amazing achievement, it actually has no relevance really to my medicine degree. So therefore it was on a low priority, whereas doing work experience, watching open heart surgery and picking out a specific patient in that and what I learned from it, that was super relevant and taught me a load of skills that are necessary for a career in medicine. So you've got to really prioritize. Whilst you may have, won a gold medal in horse jumping, you need to make sure that you link it back always to that medicine degree and how it will help you and how it will make you a really good medical student. Lots of people say don't read examples online, but I think you should read a few examples online because honestly, I had no idea how to even write a personal statement or what a medicine personal statement should look like. So I read a few examples online that gave me a really good idea of like the sort of structure and what I should include. So I think that's really important, but ensure that if you do read an example, then don't start writing your personal statement until 2 or 3 days after, because you don't want to accidentally copy that personal statement and plagiarize your work, because that would not be good at all. And then if you do write a draft for your personal statement, then make sure you leave it a few days before you read it again, because I found that when I was writing a draft, even if I thought it was terrible afterwards, at the time I thought it was like the most amazing thing ever, because I had like tunnel vision. But then I wouldn't read it for a few days, I'd come back to it, and then I'd realise that that doesn't sound right, I've done a spelling mistake there, that point is completely invalid. So make sure that, you know, that's why it's so important to leave so much time to write your personal statement, so that you can kind of improve it gradually over time. Another thing I'd say is don't let too many people read your personal statement, because if you have multiple conflicting opinions, then it can get really confusing and you don't know who to side with. So I chose 3 like main important people to read my personal statement. So one of them was my local GP, because of course they had medicine experience, so they could give me some advice of what I've written on there. My head of year, and then my biology teacher. So I just let a select few people read it, because I just didn't want too many conflicting opinions, and I trusted their opinions, so I just chose those 3, because if you let every person read it, then it is really difficult and can get really confusing. And then what I'd also suggest is, if you have a lot of other medicine applicants in your year, then I recommend probably not reading other people's personal statements. Luckily I didn't have this problem, as I was the only one applying to medicine in my school year. However, if you read someone else's medicine personal statement and think it looks amazing, they've done all of these achievements, roles, responsibilities, you may compare your personal statement to theirs and think that yours isn't good enough, and I just don't think that's very helpful, because obviously everyone has done different things and every person's experiences are valid. So, you know, it might just stress you out more reading someone else's personal statement. And then the last thing I want to say is that when you're actually writing your personal statement, like the first few drafts, don't bother with the character limit. I think just write the best personal statement you can, and then worry about the character limit afterwards. And once, you know, if it's over the character limit, then you can take out different words that are unnecessary. But then if you're over the character limit a lot, then you can take out points that maybe aren't necessary. So I'd say just don't try and abide to the character limit whilst you're writing it, because it will really restrict you. So now I'm going to talk about the advice that I'd give for the different aspects of the personal statement. So first of all, with the introduction, I think it's really important that you smash that introduction, just to make it super engaging and just give the admissions tutor a sense of who you are. So I think the most obvious thing to write is why you want to study medicine. So just try and think to yourself, why is it that I want to study medicine? And just write completely honestly why you want to do that. Every person's reason to study medicine is different. Every person's reason to study medicine is valid. So don't think that you have to make up some sort of extravagant reason, because some people just know from a very young age that this is what they want to do. They love to help people. So just be as honest as you can. And then I'd also recommend leaving the introduction till last, because I just found it really difficult to write. So I found it a lot easier to write the introduction once I had the rest of my personal statement finished, so that I could kind of make it flow with one another and fit together quite nicely. Talking about work experience, I found it really difficult, because I found it really hard to kind of articulate what I learned from my work experience in a concise and meaningful manner without telling a story. I constantly fell into that trap of telling a story, but what you need to do is just reflect on what you learned. They don't really care what you saw, what you did on your work experience. They care about what you learned. So I had some sort of like paragraph structure for when writing about my work experience. So I've just got it on my iPad here, so I'm just kind of looking down to read off of it. So the way that I structured the work experience paragraphs was, first I stated what I did. So what I'm about to say are all examples from my personal statements. Of course, don't copy them, because they'll come up in the plagiarism detector. But so I stated what I did. Observing open heart surgery was remarkable. And then second, I wrote about what I saw and what I learned from it. So this is an example that I wrote. Even when the patient was placed on bypass and the cardiac muscles ceased, the surgeon's precision was not impaired, emphasizing that remaining calm under pressure is paramount. And then the third little bit is conclude the paragraph with a statement that kind of says why your experience makes you more motivated to study medicine, or why it makes you more suited to study medicine. So the example I wrote was, it makes me enthused to work in an environment where we can join our different areas of expertise with the common goal of providing excellent healthcare. So that's what I followed, because otherwise I'll just go on a rant, and you don't want to tell the story because they really don't care. They just want to care about what you learn from it. And also what I would say is, do not exaggerate, do not lie about your work experience, because it will really show if you get into the interviews and they are quizzing you about your work experience and you can't give a clear or honest answer. So definitely, just be honest about what you experienced, and try and just show what skills it has given you, what sort of considerations it has given you with applying to study medicine. So the next thing that's really important to write in a personal statement is actually your interest in medicine. You may have all the skills to actually perform to be a doctor, but you need to actually show that you're interested in medicine as an academic subject. So things that you could talk about is independent research that you've done, whether you've done like an EPQ about a medicine topic. I think that is really, really good, as it shows that you're passionate about medicine and that you're willing to research further. You could also talk about a book that you've read. So I didn't actually end up including it, but I was going to talk about Rachel Clark's book called Your Life in My Hands. I really recommend it because she kind of very brutally, honestly tells you about all the challenges of working in the NHS, of working in medicine. So I think that's really, really clever to put in your personal statement, because you can say, I know working in the NHS and medicine is really, really challenging, but because of this, I will be resilient enough to cope with it. So it's showing the admissions tutor that you are aware that being a doctor is not all about saving people's lives. There are a lot of challenges in your job, but because you're motivated, you will be resilient enough to overcome those challenges. What I ended up doing on my personal statement to show my interest in medicine was I actually stated something that I saw on my work experience, and then how that interested me to pursue further research. I ended up looking at British medical journals and podcasts about this specific topic. So I think that's really good, because you almost hit two birds with one stone. Is that the expression? I'm not sure. Because I've talked about something I witnessed on work experience, and then I also talked about my interest in medicine and how I like to do research. So I think that's really clever as well. Even though you're writing a medicine personal statement, it's really important that it's not all about medicine. You need to show that you have a life outside of medicine, because admissions tutors understand that medicine is a really, really stressful and challenging degree. So they want to find candidates that can handle that stress by relaxing, by doing some other sort of activity. So if you have some sort of hobby or extracurricular activity that you do, then that's really good to mention. But just to give you the extra edge, really talk about the skills that you've learned from that hobby and how that will consequently help you in your medicine career, whether that be developing empathy skills, teamwork, leadership, whatever it may be. That is super important to include. And then if, like me, you're planning to do a gap year before you study medicine and you're applying deferred entry, then it's really, really important that on your personal statement you do talk about what you intend to do on your gap year, because medical schools tend to be fine with gap years, but they want to see candidates who are going to use that gap year productively. So this is personally what I wrote on mine. I put just a couple of sentences. I put about that I was going to focus on rebuilding my strength and fitness following cancer treatment, and then that I was also going to work as a healthcare assistant to gain some more medicine experience before I enter my degree. So it's really important to show that you are doing something productive, or if you're going to go traveling, just to give them an idea of why you want to defer your place. In terms of the conclusion, it's really important that you write a conclusion that gives the admissions tutor a lasting impression of your ability to study medicine. So what I personally wrote about was very patient focused. I talked about how I'm excited to use the skills that I learned in my medicine degree to help people and help patients in the future. So it kind of showed and instilled the fact that the reason I want to study medicine is because I want to help people. So it gave the admissions tutor that lasting impression. I think it's really important also that you don't repeat yourself in your conclusion. If you've written a point in your former paragraphs, don't rewrite it in the conclusion. Try and think of a new point, really, because every sentence counts. To finish the video, I just want to give you my sort of miscellaneous tips that I couldn't really fit anywhere else but are still equally important. So first things first, get an English teacher or someone who's good at English to check your grammar, your spelling, because, it just doesn't look good if you've got spelling mistakes in your personal statement. And then another thing I'd say is that your personal statement does not need to be a work of art. I remember giving it to my English teacher and she criticised me, saying that my paragraphs didn't flow together and it wasn't a very cohesive essay. But at the end of the day, to make a cohesive essay, you've got to add in characters, and they're characters that I could not afford to include. So, at the end of the day, the admissions tutor is not going to judge your personal statement on its ability to flow and the cohesion of the paragraphs. They're going to judge the content, so I really wouldn't worry about making it an amazingly flowing essay. My strategy for if the character count is over the limit is just to start by removing unnecessary words. There's loads of words that I had in there that was completely unnecessary, and then if that's still not enough, then you may have to consider removing parts of sentences or even a whole paragraph altogether. But just, if you do have to remove a paragraph, then just make sure that you remove the one that is of least priority, of least relevance. Don't take out one of your best points. You've got to make sure that with every single aspect of your personal statement, if it is asked in your interview, then you're able to elaborate and just justify it. So for example, if you've talked about reading a certain medicine book, if they ask you about it on the interview, you need to be able to give an answer and show that you have actually read it. So if you read a medical book like a year ago, then please, before your interviews, do read that book again, just so that if they do ask you about it on the interviews, then you can answer, because there's nothing worse than going in and saying that you've done all this stuff on the personal statement, but either you haven't actually done it or you can't remember. So definitely do that. Obviously, this isn't completely relevant to the MMI, as they never ever look at your personal statement, but with panel interviews and like Oxbridge, it's really important that you are able to justify everything on your personal statement. Medical schools love volunteering, so what I advise you is to not just say, oh yeah, I volunteered at an old people's home. Say that you volunteered at a old people's home for X amount of months or years. They love to see a timescale to show that it is a long-term commitment and that you will be committed to study medicine also. The last thing I'd say is make sure that your personal statement isn't unrealistic. Show that you do understand the challenges of medicine. Don't show that you think that medicine, don't glorify medicine. Don't say, oh yeah, I can't wait to save lives, because that's great, but in your day-to-day job, medicine is much more than just saving lives. You've got a lot of challenges, especially working in the NHS, so I think it's really important that you show the admissions tutor that, and then show them that you have the resilience to cope with those challenges, because that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for people who just want to save lives and they love medicine. They want people who will be able to cope with the stresses and challenges of that job. I really hope this video helped you. Do leave any more questions that you have in the comment section down below, or message me on social media, because I'll be more than happy to help. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.